Hello, everyone. This is Dawn. I'm coming to you from downtown Pittsburgh. This podcast, The Point, we talk about everything wedding planning in the city of Pittsburgh and beyond. Today, I have one of my favorite people with me, Cara Svetkovich. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Okay. Sometimes I have to say it a few times. I'm going to be
You
honest.
got it right.
Cara, well, can you say hello to our Pittsburgh brides? I know you're part of a community, but maybe they haven't seen your face. So can you say hello to everyone?
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here, Dawn. Thank you for having me. I am super excited to have this conversation today.
I think this conversation is so valuable to our brides and brides technically anywhere in the world, not just in Pittsburgh, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a great conversation to be had, and I'm hoping that it's helpful for all of our brides on Pittsburgh brides and around the states. I'm sure that it'll be great for us and great for them. So I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. So I want to begin. Can you tell me, Cara, a little bit about your background? I know what you do now, and we'll get into that,
Sure.
but can you give us a little bit of your professional experience?
Sure. So I started working in the hospitality and event industry right outside of college. So I started working for a hotel called the Marriott City Center, which is the one that is right across from the arena. I started there as a sales coordinator. So essentially, I was working in the sales office and coordinating logistics for functions, and worked there for a number of years and held various roles in sales and events. And then I worked for some other venues in the area surrounding Pittsburgh and surrounding the city, and eventually ended up at a wedding facility, a high-end wedding facility south of the city. And I was their director of sales and their general manager. So I handled their wedding and social and corporate accounts, and then also helped with oversight of the operational team as well.
Then you took the dive and you went into your own business as a full-time wedding planner.
Curstia Events is my business, and I had actually started that as a sideline venture back in 2013 when I was still working in the industry. But as I'm sure many of our venue coordinators can attest to, it is very, very difficult to run a full-time business when you're working full-time in the event industry because you're putting so many hours in. I didn't delve deeply into it. I was doing some functions. Oftentimes it was just through word of mouth, friends and family. I would do weddings, but then at the end of 2021, maybe beginning of 2022 is when I decided to go full time into wedding planning. It's been a really, I think, natural progression. It may sound a little cliche, but I always loved the personal relationship that I was able to form with my clients. And I think that that was something that I really was desiring and seeking a little bit more. And I felt like that was lacking in my venue coordinator experience. It's really fulfilling to be able to reach that and attain that through my work now with Curstia.
And I'm going to circle back to this. I just had this conversation with my last interview. It's the non-monetary gratification in what we do. It's the passion for,
My gosh, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Again, I think it sounds a little cliche, but I'm sure so many people that are professionals in the industry can say that they've formed relationships with people who were their clients. And that's definitely true. So many of my clients have become friends. They've become like family. We still see each other today. And that's really special and really important. It is. It's very fulfilling. It's great work. I really do love it.
And you're great at it. I have heard nothing but
Gosh, thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much.
you're so welcome. I have touched base with several brides that you have helped them with, and I've met some of them in person at some of our sip and shop shows, and I've heard nothing but kudos on you. We have yet to work together, but I'm waiting for that. It's going to happen
Well,
soon,
thank
right?
you so much. Well, that is not, we did work together on that one special wedding that we did.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
save that one for the end.
Okay.
So I do want to talk about, so this is a question brides are watching their budget and they're
Yes.
trying to figure out how they're going to afford everything for their wedding. And maybe they have a big wedding, maybe they have a smaller wedding, but everything that they're looking at, they're just looking at numbers and trying to crunch things and make it work. And I think
Yeah.
a wedding planner is one of those things that they're just like, I'm not sure that I need a wedding planner. And I often hear the brides say, well, the venue has a venue coordinator that's going to be the wedding planner. And I know because I've worked with them,
Hmm.
we have so many talented venue coordinators in the city of
Absolutely.
Pittsburgh. And so I don't want to in any way say that they're not qualified to do what they need to do at the venue on that
Right.
day. But there is a clear difference between the venue coordinator's duties and the wedding planner's responsibilities. And because you've worked on both sides of the aisle,
Right.
I think you're the perfect person to answer this question for the brides and help them navigate through, do I need a wedding planner? Can I
Hmm.
just rely on the venue coordinator? What's the difference? That would be the deciding factor for them.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And I do think that this is a conversation that needs to be had because there is a misunderstanding, I think, between what a venue coordinator and a wedding planner does. Venue coordinator, so I think you can look at it somewhat simply. A venue coordinator is working for the venue. A wedding planner is working for the couples. For example, when a venue coordinator, I was really only concerned about the part of the timeline that started when guests entered my space. So, if that was the ceremony that was being held on site or the cocktail hour, it really didn't concern me what happened beforehand. Whereas a wedding planner is concerned with all of those details. That's a very common distinction, I think, that needs to be made. It's an important one because I'm finding more and more that venues are actually starting to require that their clients do have a day of coordinator or a wedding planner. I think that speaks to the difference. I think that, yes, we have great venue coordinators and they work with us. They are our colleagues and our teammates, and they're such an integral part of the process. But they themselves are showing that there's a distinction, that there's a thing that they're responsible for and things that planners are responsible for. I think it's important to highlight the difference between the two.
Agreed. And just to cover some of the things that fall into the wedding planner category, but not
Hmm.
necessarily the venue coordinator category, your wedding budget. Tell us about how
Right.
you help them navigate all of that.
Right. So a wedding planner is going to help a couple, especially if they're engaged in partial or full scale planning, with creating that comprehensive budget for the wedding couple. A venue coordinator is not going to do that. They are essentially going to provide you the details of what their packages include and the cost associated with them, and that's really where it begins and ends. The wedding planner is going to look at that venue portion as part of that comprehensive budget piece and put that in. That being said, a wedding planner is also going to scout and look for that venue. They're going to look for the other vendors and source those vendors for you and work through those vendor negotiations and contracts.
I'm going to chime in right here, because I think it's important because the wedding planner is also going to scout the venues for the rehearsal dinner, the bridal shower,
Correct.
all the other
Correct.
festivities for the wedding, not just the ceremony reception or reception
Correct.
only.
Yeah, and how all of those venues are going to work together. So, for example, you may have welcome drinks the night of the rehearsal dinner scheduled somewhere, and then a rehearsal dinner at another space, and you have to also make sure that your ceremony rehearsal lines up with that in those times. So there are a lot of logistics to coordinate, and your wedding planner is going to do that. Whereas a venue coordinator, again, is going to concern themselves just with the piece that takes place within their four walls.
And respectively, I know that a lot of venue coordinators maybe have a preferred vendor list and people that they refer that they work with. And I'm on
Yes,
some of those lists, you're some of those lists, right? It makes their life easy because they know who they're working with, they know their routine, they communicate well with each other. At the end of the day, a wedding planner is going to maybe make some suggestions that will save you money, will save you
absolutely.
time, will save you energy from shopping and looking for someone. If you're trying to tweak that budget down and maybe a $4,000 DJ is a little bit out of your price and the wedding planner might know someone who's really talented that can do it for 1,500, or
Absolutely.
you're going to find that florals, maybe they'll make some recommendations. Well, maybe we can do fresh flowers here and we can do silks here. And I know somebody and we can save some money. I know that every wedding planner has a full arsenal in their belt of people that they can turn to, right?
Absolutely. That's very, very true. Well said.
And the timeline for the day. So another thing that a wedding planner does is the
Mm-hmm.
timeline for the day. I know the
Yep.
venue coordinator is capable of doing that
Yes.
for the venue, but they do not necessarily do the full experience for the entire day, correct?
Right. Correct. So, just to share a little bit, typically when I'm creating a timeline for the day, I'm going to start with the time that the couple needs to wake up and what time they're going to start with hair and makeup and getting dressed. And that's where we're going to begin. It starts at 6 or 7 o'clock. If you're lucky, 8 o'clock in the morning. Again, your venue coordinator is concerned about when your guests arrive to their site, to their venue, and when the wedding party arrives, and that's the distinction there.
Can I ask you a question just as
Yeah, of course.
put a little insight for the brides? How many times do you edit a timeline as you're getting into the 30-day
My
window?
goodness. Oh my goodness. Countless times. And I know that my July and August brides, if any of you are watching, you can attest to this. I actually use a working document, as I call it, and I highlight all of the TBD things that we're waiting on, on answers and things that need to be tweaked. And that's something that it's edited many, many times over. Many times over.
Because we have to be fluid.
We have to be fluid. There are lots of changes. For example, a bride may have, or a couple, I should say, may have cancellations with their guest count. Someone may not be able to make it, or they may have additions. We need to switch seating. Someone may be arriving, coming to the party now that, has a dietary restriction. Countless things change up to the day of the wedding, and that document does need to be fluid. And typically, what I do is share that with all of the interested parties and all of the vendors, and then once that is our final, I'll send out a PDF. But sometimes changes are even made on the fly. But yeah, I would say it's not uncommon to edit a timeline, a dozen times even, from start to finish, if
Last
not more.
Yeah, and the venue coordinators, that's not their responsibility.
And it's so many, I do need to say. I mean, the venue coordinators are so great. The ones that I've worked with, we share the documents that we work off of. So that timeline and detail document that I work off of, I share with my venue coordinators and all of my vendors, and they do the same. And we ensure that we're all on the same page. But, a reputable, strong, good wedding planner is going to create that document for you and ensure that all of your vendors and your venue has access to it.
Good wedding planner makes the venue coordinator's job easy.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They work in
Yes,
tandem with each other.
absolutely.
You become their advocate. You are the couple's advocate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've often said, and I think we've shared this, it's like having insurance for your wedding and for your event.
I recall a wedding a couple years back. I think it was at Iron Mills Farm. The mother of the bride was in an auto accident in the morning.
Ma-
She was fine, but of course she was bringing all these things
Uh,
to the wedding, and like the venue coordinator was setting the venue and taking care of their responsibilities, and there's a great venue coordinator there at that venue. It was the wedding planner that got in their car and went down and loaded everything from her car into
yeah.
her car, got
Yeah.
mom, made sure mom was okay. Like, she was the one that put out the fire. She was the one that
Yes.
solved the problem. And there will be little problems throughout the day, things that you don't
Absolutely.
expect, because you have so many things that are out of your control. It's the weather, it's the traffic, it's human behavior. Human behavior is
Correct.
a big one that people do not have a perspective on. They do not understand that grandma's going to forget her keys and lock herself out of her
Yep.
car, or
Yep.
something like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That is
That's
just
it.
going to throw the whole thing off a little bit. And you need to learn how to be water and fluid.
That's a very good point. We actually recently had an event and we were waiting on key members of the family to arrive. They were delayed. While waiting for them to arrive, the skies just opened up and it started raining. And so we had to, again, the ceremony was being held outdoors, and we had to shift things. We had to get guests out of the rain and move the ceremony location. And of course, the venue jumped in, all of the other vendors jumped in, but we made that happen. And I mean, I'm a little biased, of course. This is what I do professionally, but oftentimes I do say to myself, oh my goodness, like if a couple did not have someone that was assigned to handle these responsibilities, how would this have been handled? You don't want, your wedding party out there and in their formal attire, moving things in the rain. I mean, you want someone to take care of those things for you.
Or the venue coordinator that you've had a handful of conversations with.
Right. Right.
The wedding planner knows you. If they've been on this journey with you for 24 months, 18 months, 6 months, whatever that journey of time is, you've had enough conversations that you have a vibe for the
Yeah,
couple,
there's a
right?
relationship there. And to that end, I think it's important to say that oftentimes the venue coordinator that you may have booked or contracted, excuse me, your wedding with may not be the one that is managing your event day of. You may have booked 24 months in advance and have worked with, Sally the entire time, and then suddenly Susie shows up the day of. And that's not uncommon, and because again, they know their venue well and they are there to meet the needs of the venue. But I think it's sometimes a little unsettling for our couples.
Yeah, because they have built a little relationship with them as
Right.
well, and you just
Yeah,
don't know. They could take a new job too. You've got a 2-year
absolutely.
span of time between booking your venue and your wedding in most cases,
Absolutely.
and, a lot of the venue coordinators, I'll go into the venue and I'm like, "I'm sorry, we haven't met." And I'll have to
Right.
introduce myself because it's a brand new coordinator. "Oh, no, she moved up. She went to another position at another Hyatt." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I mean, this is what we deal with on a daily basis, but I think it throws the consumer off when it happens
Of
to them and
course.
they don't see that coming. So you're a wedding planner works in tandem with the DJ and the officiant and all the other parties involved in queuing everybody up and making sure that everything is on time and online. If the ceremony and the reception are in the same
Yes.
venue, the venue coordinator could assist with that as well. And
Yes.
I know many of them do, and they help with the decor aspect. Maybe they have it decor in their inventory and they help you with that and linens and things like that. But there's the human dynamic that the wedding planner handles. It's the family of, the family questions, the family
Yes.
concerns. I need this, I don't have that. And the guest and the vendors loading in, loading out. They're running late, they're running behind. Typically, the venue coordinators would handle that scenario, but who are they communicating with? Who's that point of contact that's navigating all of that and handling that? And tell me a little bit more about how you do that.
Yeah, so if a couple has contracted the services of a wedding planner, it's going to be your wedding planner that handles that. And so I think that's something I often say, and I definitely, it's not coming from a place of arrogance, definitely not. But I have often said, I think that sometimes clients don't understand the purpose of a wedding planner until that purpose is served, because it's so difficult, especially if you aren't accustomed to planning events of this size or scale, to anticipate what the needs and the challenges are going to be. And that's, going back to a couple of questions ago where I said, oh my gosh, I oftentimes feel badly for those clients that don't have that designated point of contact or planner on site to handle that. Because if you don't, the bride is answering her phone the day of and answering, trying to put out those fires and handling all of the logistic questions. The shuttle service is calling the groom and trying to arrange meeting spots or to let them know that they're running 15 minutes behind. And it puts a lot of burden on the shoulders of the couple who has spent a lot of money for this wedding. And, undoubtedly it just puts a little bit of a damper on things. And I think that it's enjoyed so much more when you just delegate that to a planner and give that to someone else to manage.
And the venue coordinators, if the bride's putting her dress on and accidentally puts her heel through her dress and rips her
Yes.
dress, and there is something wrong in the kitchen, maybe there's a fire in the kitchen or the chef didn't show up, he was in an
Yeah.
accident or something, the venue coordinator is always going to have to pivot towards their part, which is the venue.
Correct.
If they have
Correct.
to make that decision, they're gonna try and navigate both, I'm sure. Good VCs will do that, but it's the wedding planner is your advocate. They're the one that's gonna, like, pull out their emergency kit.
Yep.
I've got a needle and thread, I know how to sew, I got this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think most wedding planners travel with those. We have the garment tape and the safety pins and the super glue and the eyelash glue and all of those things. And definitely, we definitely use them. So
Didn't that happen to one of our Pittsburgh brides just recently? Her strap broke?
yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, straps have broken, bustles have broken, the eyelashes have lifted, and I've have glued the eyelashes before they walk down the aisle. I mean, all of those things happen, and it is, I think, a comfort for clients to have someone there that can handle those things.
For sure. And also, I know that the monetary aspect, the budget and the contracting and vendor payments and everything, but you also handle at the back end of it, making sure that, they understand gratuity,
Yes.
who to tip, how much maybe to give them a ballpark, how to handle that, whether that's in person or adding it to their contract, who needs a vendor meal because you want to feed your vendors. That's there for more than 6 hours needs to eat a meal.
I mean, I think there are things that are somewhat taken for granted as common knowledge to those of us that have been in the industry. For example, certain venues may add a service charge or a gratuity on for this, and a client may, understandably so, think that that goes to the staff, but sometimes that goes to the house or to the venue to cover operational expenses. So that's a question I often ask: is that going to your wait staff and to your bartenders? Is that essentially a gratuity or a tip that's going to be received? Those are questions, that we have ahead of time and we dialogue about. And it's something that people that aren't in the hospitality and event industry may not be aware of.
Agreed. And specifically if they've never worked in hospitality.
Of course, yeah, of
Y
course.
and a lot of people fall into that category. They don't understand.
Right.
You I know that a lot of wedding planners when I'm on site, they're the ones that walk around and give the envelope at the end of the night to
Yeah.
the staff with a gratuity and a thank you card. And I'm just gonna note that in there, those
Hmm.
handwritten thank yous. If you don't have time to do it, have your wedding planners do it because the vendors love that. It's not really about the money.
Absolutely.
It's about the time that you took to write a card to say thank you for being a part of our special day. I love those cards when we get them in the mail sometimes
My
after the event,
gosh.
but getting them the day
Yeah.
of because people, I think another thing they don't really understand is the amount of time. Yes, you book us for 4 hours for the ME photo booth if you're booking the camper booth or a photo booth, but
Hmm.
our day is a 12-hour day easily.
Yes.
We're up in the morning loading the truck. We probably cleaned everything the day before. We packed everything the day before. We've done 50 emails with you confirming art and
Yes.
timelines and everything. So we have all that preliminary work that we've done for you before we actually get there that day. But we're loading the truck. We're driving to the venue at like 12 o'clock or so to get there at 2 o'clock because we don't want to disrupt the wedding. We want to get
Yep.
everything set. We take a little break between the bridal party, getting their photos and after the ceremony. And then when the bridal party announcements begin, then, we have a window of time that we're idle, but we're still like not at home doing work,
Right.
right? We're there on
Yeah.
set. And my husband and I, we don't get home till sometimes 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning when we're doing an
Absolutely.
event, when all the staff is out. I have Josh out, I have Jason out, we're out at different, we have 10 photo booths. So there's a group of us can be out and, we're all text messaging each other on each
Yep.
other. We're all text messaging each other on the way home saying, okay, we landed, we're home, we're safe.
Yes.
And
Yep.
and then Sunday comes and we're just dead tired,
Yes. So true.
dead tired. And then Monday morning we wake up and our inbox is blowing up.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody
So
wants
true.
you. And so, in respect of people in the wedding industry, we do work 8 days a week. And I'm not kidding on that. Like, we
Yes.
get very
Yes.
little rest. So, if someone doesn't get back to you right away, be kind, be patient, give them a couple days. If you email them on Friday or Saturday, give them till Tuesday or
Yes.
Wednesday to get back to you because it's the life that we live and we love what we do, but it is exhausting some weeks, especially when you have multiple weddings.
Yes, absolutely. So well said. And I actually will caution my clients if they are expecting to receive a response from a particular vendor on a weekend. I'm like, you may get it, but please don't be alarmed if you don't. You may not hear back until Monday or Tuesday. And a lot of vendors actually have put out of office messages on their email as of late saying, I'm in the midst of my wedding season. You're important to me, but I'm super busy and I'm running back to back events and I'll get back to you at the start of next week.
And their wedding is the only wedding that they're planning. And we have
Yes.
hundreds as well as
Yeah.
working them. And I think the public, the consumer, I think if we shed a little light on that, they might have a little more understanding that we're
Yeah.
juggling.
I heard many years ago, I think when I was a venue coordinator, I heard a planner say to to a bride. She said, who was I think upset that maybe she wasn't as accessible as what she had wanted her to be. And she said, I was managing another wedding that day, and that's the same attention that I'm going to give to your wedding day of. And I think that's very important. Everyone should keep the lines of communication open. You want that from your vendors when you qualify them. That's an expectation that you should have. But it should raise a red flag if your planner or other vendor is calling you or conducting business from a wedding that they're currently working. You want their full attention on the event that they're at, and you want them to be present in the moment.
And talking about that, let's talk a little bit about the timeline, because this is
Hmm.
part of, validating the fees for a
Yes.
wedding planner. And it's not just they're there for 12 hours the day of your
Right.
wedding. It's talk to me a little bit more about that. Explain that to the consumer so they understand what's involved in this 24-month timeline.
I've often said that it's a difficult service to sell because it's not a tangible product. It's not, whereas you have a florist and you see the flowers that you're getting. You have a photo booth and you see that photo booth and the presentation and the setup that you're getting. A wedding planner, of course, is service-based. So you're paying for that service and that commitment. So I would say that on average, for an average size wedding, and we can get into this, I don't believe that there is truly day of coordination only, but for a partial plan or a full scale plan for an average size wedding and, average logistical event, you are probably putting in, and you being wedding planners, 60 to 200 plus hours
I
ahead of
believe
the
that.
event. Easily. It's countless emails and Zoom calls and meetings and text messages and phone calls and exchanges that are had to finalize details and orchestrate details ahead of the event. And then, of course, as you had already mentioned, we are on site for 10 to 14 hours day of. So there are a lot of hours that go into the pre-planning part of wedding planning.
200 hours. That's 5 weeks of like a regular job
Yes. Oh,
on the high
absolutely.
end, right?
Yeah, I think
Like,
without question. Without
yeah.
question. Yeah.
And I'm just trying to bring it in so that our couples understand that's technically 200 hours if it's a very high end wedding or one that's complicated, that's in the middle of nowhere, and you have all these
Yes.
things that you have to overcome and objections and problems to solve. 200 hours is essentially 5 weeks if you're working a 40-hour work week
Yeah. And it's
job.
easy to do. It's easy to do. If you would imagine, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but if you imagine that a planner is traveling even just an hour to and from round trip, so that's 2 hours there. And then if a meeting on average lasts 2 hours, that's 4 hours there for one in-person meeting alone. And there are several meetings that need to take place whenever you are involved in a partial plan, not even full scale planning, but a partial plan.
And then you're going to the dress shopping and the
Oh, yes.
fitting and the rehearsal dinner and the bridal
Yeah.
shower, and you're helping with all those and those day of events timeline and everything that you're
Yes.
doing. Like, easily you can expel 200 hours. What do you think is the average? What do you think, like, in the middle? Like, for the average wedding, 125 people, and is it a larger wedding that allocates more time from you?
So, not really. I don't think that the number of people necessarily impacts it. I think that the scale and the scope of the wedding may impact the number of hours that go into the plan. So, for example, the number of vendors that are involved, or, the installation, the decor installation, things like that are going to impact the number of hours that you have to allocate to working that particular project or event. But if you have a 50-person function, and you still have all of those key vendors, you're still going to have to go through the process of planning it. So I really don't think that the guest count significantly impacts the number of hours. I think it's more the scope of the project,
Good
if that
point.
makes sense.
It does make it does. Very good point. All right, Kara. So I have a question for you. I know this happens
Hmm.
to me all the time,
Yeah.
but things can and will go wrong. Tell me about a situation that went wrong for you, how you handled it, and what the final result was.
Yep. So, and this will speak to the importance of having a planner that can be your advocate and your person that puts out those fires day of. So, I mean, I will forever remember this. I was standing in the ballroom of this venue, and the serving and catering staff was standing there, and the cake had been delivered, and it was on the cake table, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I think it was like a 3-tiered cake. And we're standing there and we start to see it lean. And I mean, it's 2, 3 hours before the wedding, and we just start to see it lean. And the entire cake topples over onto the floor, and it is in a crumbled mess. I mean, absolutely the most beautiful cake. So what do you do? Right? I mean, this would be devastating to a bride, to a groom, to their family. So I called the bakery. Now, of course, 2 or 3 hours before a wedding, you're not going to have time
Right.
to bake and decorate a 3-tiered wedding cake. So we discussed it, and I said, decorate foam cakes, because most people know that oftentimes cakes are made and they're fake or they're faux, and only a portion will be real, and that's the portion that you cut. And so that's what we did. We had the bakery redecorate these round foam tiers, and we put in a little piece of cake, and that's exactly where we told them to cut. And because we still had 2 to 3 hours to get cake baked for them to serve to the guests, the bakery was able to prepare sheet cakes, because they were able to bake those and they didn't need to be decorated. So then that is what we served, and the clients were none the wiser. They never did know. My
Except for telling
photographers,
them where to cut, right?
except for telling them where to cut. But as I'm sure you have seen, and most photographers know, the photographers instruct them, make a cut here, make a cut there. And I told the photographer, make sure that's where they make the cut.
Don't mess
And
this
that's what
up.
they did. Don't mess it up. It's all on you now. And that's what we did. That's what we did. I've actually had several instances of cake disasters. You know, the bakery was driving and they had to slam on their brakes and it fell on the floor. That had happened another time. And we kind of just packed that cake together, and I had a florist decorate the side of it. But that one where we watched it fall. It was in slow motion. It was,
You could
but
probably
they never.
save a lot of money and not do the big tiered cake and just go with the cookie
Yes.
table and a small cake that you
Yes,
cut.
yes. But my advice to everyone is, the cake was delicious, but please don't do tiers out of like Bavarian cream and fruit fillings, because they do not hold up well in summer heats.
That's a good tip. Everybody take note of that. So I want to talk about, and I want to ask you a question, but I probably already know the answer to this. How long, 20 years of experience in the industry?
Yeah, so just under 20, I think 18 or 19, which
Well, you can't
is
tell by looking at
showing
you.
showing my age. Thanks, Dawn.
No, you can't tell by looking at you. So tell me, what is the most memorable moment in your almost 20 years?
Gosh, there are truly so many. And again, that probably sounds, I don't know if that sounds insincere, but there truly are so many. But I would have to say that the most memorable is the wedding that we just did together, for Miss Miranda and her family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those that are unfamiliar with this story, a bride had posted on a social media on Facebook that she was driving in from Boston, that she was looking for a photographer because she needed to get married because her dad was actively dying. And I recently had lost my mom, and I don't know what it was. It was so serendipitous. I was working at home. I had my laptop on my lap, and my phone lit up, and it wasn't even a Facebook group that I'm a participant in, which was the irony of this. And I was also supposed to be out of town that weekend. I wasn't even supposed to be in Pittsburgh. I was supposed to be somewhere else on business, and I decided not to go and stay home. And I looked, and I saw the message, and I was like, and also I saw was actively dying. I need an actively dying. Those are the words that hit me really hard. And I commented on the thread. I was like, have you found someone? And I was like, oh, the heck with that. I'm going to message her. So I messaged the bride and I said, my name is Dawn. I am the founder of Pittsburgh Brides. I don't know if you found someone to be your photographer or if you need any assistance, but if you do, please message me back. I will assist. And her name was Miranda, and she was marrying Tyler, and they had their son Austin with them in the car. And Miranda messaged me back and she's like, thank you so much for contacting me, Dawn. A photographer said he would do it, but I haven't heard back from him. He gave me a price and then he ghosted me. And I was like, I hate when I hear those type stories. And I told her, I said, okay. I was like, I can find you a photographer and I can find you other things that you need, and we can make this happen for you because I want you to just focus on being with your dad. and spending time with him and not worry about anything about the wedding. And she's like, oh, that would be amazing. And I said, and we're not going to charge you anything. I'm going to find people that are going to just step up and do this for you. And I asked her, I said, when is the wedding? And she said, tomorrow. I was like, I didn't read that part in the
Yeah.
message. And I was like, I didn't show my hand, right, so to speak. And I was like, okay, I got you, no problem. And then I asked her, what do you have? Do you have flowers? Do you have rings? Do you have what do you have? Have you planned anything? And she said, I have a dress. And I said, you have a dress. This is good. Does he have a suit? He has a suit. Great. I was like, okay, Miranda, I got you. I've got everything. I'll handle it. And you were the first person, as soon as I ended that message with Miranda, that I contacted. And I was like, Cara, I need help because I want to do this. I want to do this for this couple and I want it to be beautiful and magnificent. And we have 18 hours. How are we going to do this? And you stepped up. And then, we collaborated and we messaged Amy Jennings, the photographer. And then I collaborated and I found a florist, my friend Lisa Myers, to do the bouquet and the boutonnieres and all the flowers. And we had who else was involved? Stephen Gallio, the musician, came in and played the ceremony music and
Our
pulled it
makeup
off.
artist.
Our
Our
makeup
makeup
off,
artist. Yeah.
Alana Riggio, she volunteered to do the makeup.
Hmm.
And what was so incredible about this experience is that, like, even when we were there that day and we're setting everything up and the nurses came in and they wanted to be
Hmm.
bridesmaids and they were helping us set everything
Yeah.
up, what was so amazing was watching the community all come together for one couple, for this family. And to this day, in all of my years, and I've been in the event space for 30 years, in all of my years, that was undoubtedly the finest moment in my life when I watched that man. And it was funny because when I arrived and I made eye contact with Miranda the next morning, I had
Hmm.
my suitcases with all my stuff,
Yeah.
just like you have your suitcase. We were prepared for anything, right? We're like, we're going to build an arch, we're going to do flowers, we're going to and we have this tiny little waiting room that's like 12 by 12 and we're
Mm.
moving things and Miranda comes in and as soon as I made eye contact with her, I had this soul sister feeling with her and I was so honored that she trusted us.
And I think that is just, I mean, that day and being able to give that experience to Miranda and her dad and her entire family before his passing was, I mean, it really was it was a gift. I mean, it was a gift for us, but it speaks larger volumes about what we do. And it's an honor to be able to be a part of these emotional family celebrations and connections every weekend, every day. But that really hit home. It was a bittersweet day. There was not a dry eye in the room. It was wonderful to be a part of it, but definitely a tearjerker for sure.
It was a tearjerker and it was so funny because when I arrived, the nurses pulled me and they're like, he's not going to be able to stand
I
up.
know.
He's not going to be able to walk her down the aisle. So you and I coordinated and we made the aisle like 4 foot,
Yes.
really
And
short.
boy,
Cause we're
he
like,
sure did. He
he
sure did
did.
walk her down that
He
aisle.
did. He kept telling those
Yeah.
nurses, I am walking my daughter down that
Yeah.
aisle. And it was essentially one of his final wishes to do that.
Yes.
And it didn't hit me until after when he passed the next day. And I realized that. And I was like, we were so gifted. They gave us the gift. They think that we gifted them. They gifted us.
For us to be able to be allowed, as you said, the word honor is perfect of giving that to someone. And I think all of the expenses and the chaos of planning weddings put aside, that's what it's about, right? It's about sharing like that love of family and those meaningful relationships. And I think that's what makes the work and that we do special. I think that's why, I know, at least for me, why I do love it so much.
Yeah. And you're a part of somebody's forever after. I just interviewed somebody and they said that. And it's like, that's so inspiring. And even Miranda and Tyler and their son Austin, wasn't he
Mm.
just adorable? He kept coming up and
My
thanking us. He's
gosh,
like 8
I
years
know.
old and he's like, "Thank you for doing this for my mom and my pap." And I'm like, he did it like 8 times in the few hours that we were there and I was like, "No, Austin, thank you.
He was
Thank
so
you."
sweet.
He was so gracious.
He reminded me so much of my son and my son's relationship with my dad. And it was a very special moment and a very special day for sure.
But circling back to being a part of somebody else's forever after. What a privilege that is. And
Absolutely.
I think the key for couples that are searching in this journey is finding vendors and people that feel that way, that they're
Yes.
passionate about what they
Well
do.
said.
That means more than money. They're not just looking for a quick paycheck, or they just want to come in and turn the lights on and go and get paid, that they really have a passion for their profession and what they do.
Well
And
said.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just a paycheck. It's more than
Which is
that.
why that, as you mentioned, that initial face-to-face meeting or Zoom call is so important so that you can gather whether or not that wedding professional feels that way about you and the work that they do. And it comes across. So it definitely does, and it should come across. And if it doesn't, reconsider who you employ to be a part of your day, because they should absolutely have your best interest at heart.
And don't be afraid to say no, thank you, right?
Absolutely.
You don't have to ghost somebody. You can just say, "You know what? I found someone that I really clicked with." And pros respect that so much more. If you say, "I'm sorry, we went a different direction. We found somebody that really clicked
Mm-hmm.
with." They respect that instead of them
Of course.
contacting you, following up with you, like they're
Yep.
doing their due diligence. You're more respectful of their time if you're frank with them. If it's not a good fit for you, just say so. Like
Absolutely. And
we're
it's helpful to
adults.
know why. And it's helpful
Yeah,
to know why.
that's a
Yep.
good point. That's a really good
Yeah.
point.
I mean, if there have been, I have certainly not booked every piece of business that has inquired of my services, and I love to know why, whether it's budget or some other reason. It's definitely helpful, and it's something that that helps me professionally, and as I continue to chart my path.
Yeah, because we're ever evolving and always growing. And as an entrepreneur, if you're not, yeah, you probably should go work for somebody, right? We always event day, whether it's a wedding or event, and we give it our all, no matter what's going on in our lives. And that comes from a fueled fire within. And that being said,
True.
I know that you're a featured vendor on pittsburghbrides.com. So you can find
Yes.
Cara from
Yeah.
Curstia events there, and you can email her directly from our page on the website. But how else can they find you, Cara?
You can find me at ChristiaEvents.com. You can find me on Instagram at Christia Events. That's my handle there. And then also on Facebook at Christia Events. So
In
I
closing, I'm
appreciate
going
it.
to you're welcome. In closing, I want you real quick. What does Curstia mean? Where did that come from?
So Caristia is actually, it was an ancient Roman festival, and that was a festival that celebrated the love of family with banqueting and events. And
Love
so
that.
that's where the namesake came from. Hard to pronounce. Or people don't, which it fits my name too. My last name is hard to
Like
pronounce, but
Svetkovich, like
there you
Svetkovich.
go. But so I felt that that was appropriate because that's what we're doing with our weddings. We're celebrating love for one another and love of family.
You know what I'm celebrating right now?
What's
I,
that?
I think this is the first call that you and I have ever had that your daughter didn't chime in and say,
Yes. Well, that is because Nunny is the babysitter today.
tell Nutty I
Yes,
said thank you.
I will.
And with that, I'm going to say we're signing off from downtown Pittsburgh. This is Dawn Takacs, the Point Podcast, helping you with your wedding planning journey, from getting that bling on your hand to flying away on your honeymoon. You can find us on pittsburghbrides.com, our Facebook group at Pittsburgh Brides. And please, if you enjoyed this video and you retained any value from it, you learned anything from it, make sure to subscribe, leave us a comment below. If you have any questions for either myself or Cara, leave those comments below. We'll try to reply to you. Thanks, everyone. See you, Cara. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.